It's going, it's going. Okay.
Yeah, man.
It is June 5th, 2023. This is the American Micro Podcast. I am Anthony Pago from Oklahoma City, and this is Rodney. Rodney, do you want to
Yeah, I'm
continue the
from
introduction?
the Wild West, Baltimore, Maryland, um, otherwise known as Be More Careful. Um, uh, an amazing city, but bro, it's kind of rough lately. So
Yeah.
yeah, dude. Yeah, they've got a curfew for kids now.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, and they want. Check this out. So they want residents to do like resident uh like what do they call it, like night watch or something like that. People are like,
Oh,
what are you? Yeah,
who has
yeah.
the time
I'm
to
just
stay up all night long and drive around?
not only that, I'm not getting shot, bro.
No,
That's
that's
not
true as
happening.
well. Not my problem.
That's not my problem, man. Whose kid is that? That's their problem, you know. Anyways, oh my
It's funny.
god.
So this episode we're going to talk about American music. I don't know if I said that. And you've got a guitar. Did you name your guitar? Does your guitar have a name?
No, it's a Cordoba. It's a classical. Yeah, yeah. It's an amazing guitar, actually. Yeah. So, anyways,
What
Pago and
was
I
your?
did.
Go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
Talk
no, I
about the
was gonna
history.
say, yeah. Pago and I, we played music for what, 2 years, 3 years, something like that.
A couple years. Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of
Yeah.
years, yeah.
Yeah.
Wrote a lot of really amazing music in
Hmm.
San Diego, California. Uh, More of an industrial type of uh, post new wave type of thing. It
Yeah.
wasn't really rock and roll.
No.
It was just, you know what I mean. It was it was amazing,
Some of it
actually.
was a little like kind of like the Pink Floyd stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Like experimental music that was at the time post grunge because we had gone through grunge and we had come out the other side to like some like electronica acoustic hybrid was happening for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't really want to go down the electronica rabbit hole too far, so I got live people who wanted to play live instruments. Most people that played with us had never recorded. I don't think anybody really had recorded before. They had maybe just played in the backyard or in bands.
Yeah.
Had you?
I
You
recorded.
had.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
I recorded a lot. But no,
yeah,
it was a mixture of a lot of things. A lot of really talented people. Um, Steph, Mike. I remember the party that we played at Erin's house for her boyfriend's birthday. You remember
yeah,
that?
yeah. I remember
We
that.
killed that, dude. We that was a nice show.
Yeah,
That was pretty amazing. You know.
and we played at the
Um,
Whistle Stop as well,
yeah,
right before I
just bef-
left.
yeah, just before you took off to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that whole. I mean, if you want to talk about the whole like Southern California scene, which is a different scene, completely different to what I'm doing out here, man, in Maryland. I mean, it's you know, I'm in this like fusion, avant garde, um, uh, jazz slash improvisational. Like we walk in, or a melody is set, and then we all just play to the melody,
Hmm.
and a melody and a beat, and it's it's pretty amazing. Actually, it's crazy, but you know,
So it's like the rules of the old jazz clubs, but not playing jazz particularly. Is that the deal?
yeah, it could be just about anything. We've got we've got what do we have? We have two guitars. We just found a bass player, but the guy who was on keyboard was playing bass on keyboard. We've got two ridiculously amazing drummers. Just the rhythm section is just unbelievable. And then Dallas, the other guitar player, who is also just an unbelievable guitar player. I mean, everyone's cool. Um, it's just it's not SoCal, but then again, does it have to be? You know,
Right. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. American music particularly is like at its best when it's fusing new things and changing things up. And if you copied every city across America, it would be boring, right? We'd all have the same music, same songs, same styles.
No, I remember. I remember when like when I was a kid, growing up in the '60s. Like my dad bought all these records, like Dave Brubeck, because that's all I listened to. And like before I listened to anything, I listened to jazz. Before I listened to anything else, I listened to jazz.
Yeah.
So I was listening to like, see if I can do it. That one, take five. But
Yep.
it was like, um, I haven't played that in forever. But it was crazy. So it was like Cannonball Adderley, Miles Davis, Jimmy Smith, all these like unbelievable, like off the hook, like jazz musicians. And then I hit, the whole British wave came when I was a kid, the Beatles, the Stones, the Dave Clark Five. And then like the creme de la creme was like Motown, man. When that hit, bro, it was over. It was
Yeah.
over. It was over. Then you had, the late '60s with like the Yardbirds, middle to late. Um, Moby Grape, and then you had like Grace Slick and what was the name of the Jefferson Airplane?
Hmm.
All this really cool stuff. Grateful Dead. I think Led Zeppelin put their first album out in '69. ZZ Top put their first album out in '68. But it was enjoyable growing up listening to that kind of music because it was just sign of the times. Like you know there was no people weren't dancing in cocktail dresses anymore, and they weren't they
Yeah.
people weren't they weren't wearing pearls and stuff like that. It was crazy. It was awesome. Though. It was
Yeah.
awesome. But I mean, what was your like? Because your experience, I'm sure, just given the music that you wrote, um, what was it? I mean, what was it for you
My
that
experience.
got you into the music thing? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up. Okay, so I was born in '79. I'm pretty young compared to you. Sorry, but
No, it's okay. I get it.
I was born in Oklahoma. That's why I'm here again. We had radio, of course, was like our primary, in church and stuff like that. I wasn't. I wasn't one of the kids who sat in the choir or anything like that. So radio was primarily my focus on music to begin with. But my sister, I shared a wall with my older sister, and she had one of the tape decks that was fancy that everybody wanted, and she'd play a lot of like to me, crazy stuff that wasn't always on the radio. So like maybe an entire U2 album or like not Def Leppard. I'm trying to remember. Oh gosh, I can't remember right now. So, but there was some like gothy stuff. I'm brain farting right now from like the mid '80s, maybe as far back as the early '80s that she would play through the wall. Pink Floyd was one of them that she played a lot. Um, and so she played like these entire long albums through the wall, and I'd press my ear against the wall to listen to some stuff, and picked up a lot of stuff through Christy, my sister. And then I started delving more into like we'd listen to the oldies driving in the car because that's what my stepdad listened to, and the oldies back then was really just like '70s, '60s, and '70s music, which isn't particularly old when you're an actual musician. That's pretty modern. And then when I left, I ran away from home basically. when I did that and was like becoming my own person, I really started getting into like, well, Jack Kerouac as an author led me down the rabbit hole of like jazz and stuff. He wanted to be a musician, and he did a little bit of scatting and like talking his poetry, kind of rhythmically, lyrically, over some jazz musicians, and um, and so I started getting into like Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday, and a lot of just like the old jazz classics and greats. Started kind of in the big band era and the black original jazz, musicians that were recorded anyway. Got into a little bit of the dirgier stuff too. Like like the mythologies that they have, like selling your soul to the devil and stuff like that. Kind of the old plantation hymns that were brought over. Um, and then started moving my way up into like some of the rarer, it's kind of reverse of most people, like the rare Led Zeppelins and the rare Pink Floyds and stuff like that. That was probably as I was getting into like smoking pot heavily and stuff like that.
Right.
Um, and those colored my musical taste quite a bit. Like starting with the jazz and everything, and understanding that there's rules. The rules are complex, but the rules can be broken. You can like make not make up a rule, but you can find a rule to make anything correct, but you still have to like back it up in the future. And then to go down the rabbit hole of like experimental, like Pink Floyd. To find that they kind of set more in a more traditional style where they'd have their verse chorus and they'd stay in key for the most part. They might derivate into a different key for a while, but then they'd bring it back. Um, and I kind of viewed that as more of like a white trend, kind of a white person type of music. And I liked the idea that I wasn't beholden to that as a half native, half white person. I felt like I could get away with experimenting a little bit more. And so that's when I met you guys. That's kind of the path that I was in mentally and wanted to follow, where I was like, well, let's put together a bunch of random people and just we kind of practiced a lot. Like we just not practiced, but jammed a lot. And I really enjoyed seeing the weird jams where we didn't dictate what keys or that we were going to repeat a structure. We kind of just let it go, and we'd tell each other, well, what about this? What about that? And I'd give you kind of a basic like desire list, like a wish list, and I'd read you some lyrics, and you'd play some melodies, and I'd be like, oh, that's nice. What about at the end though? We do this and that, or let's join these two things, and it would all just kind of work out. That really fulfilled my soul with like merging together my old desires and the new things I had learned, and just where I wanted to go. So I think that's why it worked out, was that I was ready to let you take the reins a lot, and you were willing to let me experiment. So it just like felt good.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy, man, because uh, I remember, I remember one time we were over at your house, and Lisa, remember, what was Lisa's mom's? Was it Lisa? The bar, Lisa. What was her husband's name?
Oh man, I can't, I have no
He
idea.
was the bald guy. Her daughter was like the one of the bartenders at the Whistle Stop. She had like short black hair. Anyways,
Yeah,
I remember one time like you and I were jamming at the house, and these guys had come. I guess they'd been jamming with you, and they heard us play. And one day I show up at the Whistle Stop, and Lisa's there, and she's all pissed off, like, "Well, I heard you guys really. I heard you play guitar, and you." I'm like, "Yeah," because you play really well, and my husband told me. I'm like, "Okay, just." Just no, it's wild, man. Because I'm thinking like when I think about American music, we really played. Um, when you take into consideration like all the different aspects, or all the what's the word I'm looking for? Different types of music that we brought together. Yeah, man, American music it's the way of the world, dude. It's it's literally what I think, as opposed to war, and other political based things. I think American music brought the world out of the Stone Age and out of the Dark Ages, because when the Beatles heard Chuck Berry, when the Beatles when the Rolling Stone when Keith Richards, and when you hear like see if I can do it, like when Keith Richards heard that, when Chuck Berry was duck walking, and all that stuff, and Elvis, basically, yeah, I'm just gonna say it. He just stole all his music from black people. I know there's gonna be some haters. I don't care. But Little Richard, who else? That whole like late '50s thing, man. That whole thing was just like, it brought like what is this, like this, what do they call it, oh, I forgot what they called it. It was a type of music. Was it it was like they wouldn't play it on traditional radio, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But slowly but surely, you know Chubby Checkers, I found my thrill on Blueberry Hill. Who was that? But what I'm talking about. Anyways,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all that, yeah, all that music came from someplace, and that place, you know, was, um, like you said, um, the Negro spiritual. Music that was played, that was brought about from just suffrage.
Right. Yeah.
But then you've got the other side of the coin, where you've got the Gaelic and the Celtic music that mixed with the uh, the music, the spiritual music from the plantation, and the music of suffrage. You've got bluegrass. You've got, and dude, bluegrass is amazing stuff, bro.
Yeah, I really like bluegrass. They've
Yeah,
got a festival in Arkansas that I am going to go to. I told my wife that we have to go to it, so I need to look that up because it might be coming up soon. I know it's during the warmer seasons, obviously. So I'm thrilled by it. When I was younger, bluegrass seemed a little hokey, kind of like country music seemed a little hokey. I'm not on board these days with like poppy country, but I can understand like, well, I think like a lot of people, I like the older country is really solid, good stuff to me with some exceptions. But the more poppy stuff is not up my alley. These days, any bluegrass I'm in love with. I'll listen to it all day long. I
I
love
love
the
bluegrass
environment.
music, dude.
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool.
Um, the Seldom Scene. Oh God, is one of my favorite bands. Oh, she's a fiddle player. Oh, dude, what's her name?
Fiddle players are always great. Oh man, they
Yeah,
capture my attention every time.
let me see. Um, I cannot remember her name. Why am I? She's like one of my favorite all time. Are you kidding me? Hold on, man. Let me look this up.
Yeah, sure, look it up.
Yeah, I mean, she's just, hold on. She is amazing, dude.
So, for anybody who's curious about looking our stuff up, if you just go to YouTube and look up Zero Brain, it's zero hyphen brain, Brane, and then put band after that, Zero Brain Band. You'll find some stuff. I lost the email to the account years ago. There's no way of getting it back. So that is just frozen in time. It's always there until YouTube decides to delete those songs. That's not our entire catalog. It's just the ones we made music videos to. So go look up that
They're
ridiculousness.
amazing. They're amazing. It's just some Alison Krauss, dude.
Okay. Yep. Yep. I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
Alison Krauss. Jesus Lord, dude. She is sings like a songbird, like like murders the freaking fiddle, dude.
Yeah. Like
Just,
like is athletic too, right? Like
oh
dances
yeah,
around.
just like
Yeah.
she's crazy good. She's the fiddle player with the band that sings "Man of Constant Sorrow."
What a great piece.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great piece. I mean, let me see if I can see. See, hold on. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love that stuff, dude. Like, whatever. Anyways, dude. It's soulful. It's really soulful to me. I like, oh, what's her name? One of my favorite country musicians is, God, Emmylou Harris.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, every album, bro. She's
Kind of
just,
a modern day Bob Dylan, and just how
yeah,
powerful and meaningful, like kind of in the folk, well, not the folk music, but like the American folk mentality.
yeah,
I find her to be carrying that torch
yeah,
forward.
yeah. That Americana slash,
Americana, that's a better way to put it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that Americana slash full on country music,
Yep.
like um, the Ballad of Sweet Sally Rose. That's one of her albums, and then there's another one called that she has Johnny Cash on. She's got Dolly Parton on it. She's got uh, Linda Ronstadt on it.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so good. I forgot it's the one right before it. But anyways, yeah, they do it's her, Dolly Parton, and Linda Ronstadt. They do a version of The Boxer by Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh, nice.
Bro, it's so good. It's so
Yeah.
good. Yeah, the whole album is just ridiculous. But I mean, I grew up on that. My dad's from Louisiana, from Mansfield, Louisiana, and my mom's from Tinnehaw, Texas. So I grew up listening to country music as a kid. I mean, I did, But I also grew up listening to the Supremes,
Right. Right.
and Marvin Gaye and Joni Mitchell, which that whole thing, that's a whole different ballpark. I mean, Joni, who else? Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, James Taylor,
Yeah.
And it's weird. I try to write songs now that kind of like, I want to, like, oh, I got to write something. Oh, dude, when people hear it, they're like, oh, dude, it reminds me of Steve Winwood when he was with that band, or or it sounds like Neil Young or this or that or whatever. But I mean, that's why when you and I wrote music together, it was like it was so, like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, because it was so unclear where that music was going. Although it was beautiful, So I mean,
Yeah, we didn't have well, at least verbally, didn't have a destination set like you traditionally do in a band, where you're like, okay, we all are great at folk music. We're gonna do the more spiritual stuff, and we like the key of C a whole lot, so we're gonna stick and um, and that worked for
yeah,
a lot of people. But
yeah,
we were, or at least I was, trying to lead us in a totally different path, where I was like, the more constraints we put on it, the less I'll learn, the less I'll enjoy it. So I wanted to be like, let's break the rules right off the bat. So that's why we didn't set a whole lot of rules down.
dude, it totally worked. It totally worked. I mean, those jam sessions were like epic. Like, they
Yeah,
were just, yeah, dude. Do you miss that house?
sure I do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wish I wish California hadn't have been, I mean, it still is, hadn't have been so expensive. I would have stuck around forever. And I had, nephews and nieces like growing up, so I had to go meet my family, and I had to slow down drinking and all sorts of stuff. So there were many, many reasons for me to leave. But I wish in a perfect world that, I could just have that jam session continue on forever,
Every
like just
night.
yeah, constantly.
Yeah.
I really do miss it.
And then you had that stage in the front yard.
Yeah, it was what was
Yeah,
it?
it
It
was
was like
cool.
a rock, like a cement rock thing with a big tree in the center and like tables and barbecue and I can't remember what else. Like a cool little front porch and yeah,
The
we just like
backyard.
yep, in the backyard with the little gazebo kind of thing. And we would just pull out amps and
And
drum sets
guitars.
and everything and just play. Yeah, the neighbors never complained, so they
Ever.
must not have cared or liked it. I don't know. We
Y-
never
y-
really asked.
Yeah, it was that was like a musical oasis. That part of the world, or that part of San Diego at that time, was just, it was just, I would say, from like from like, for me anyways, from like 2002 to like 2012, 13,
Yeah,
actually 2016, like a good 12-year period of time, was like, it was like, because I was in Goat Song Conspiracy. We wrote music for this poetry troupe, and then I was in Bankhead Press, Zero Brain, Pan Am, and Pan Am was like the last thing I did when I was there, because everyone kind of started doing their own thing, and Shannon moved up to I think it was Seattle,
yeah,
and uh, Chemo just started picking up a lot of other gigs, and David left San Diego and moved to Long Beach, and I'd go up there every once in a while and play gigs with him. But for the most part, I went from I literally went from like playing a lot of like the stuff that we were playing to playing a lot more like of the stuff that I learned. You know, it's just weird. Like the different types of music I was playing while I was there were like every like every aspect of American music. It was like I wouldn't so much say, well, yeah, it was basically neo soul, the industrial stuff with you,
hmm
and then Bankhead Press was just basically soul music. It's just a soul band. Pan Am was more of a like neo soul slash bossa slash whatever type of music. And now, dude, it's like I'm playing more like like Americana stuff. Like
nice.
I'm not writing as I'm kind of like going back to like root type of like you know but that's why that's why I got to get back to California, because I can't record it here because I don't know
Right.
any I can't trust these music. It's not that I can't record it here, I can't, but I trust the people that I know in San Diego
Yeah.
a lot more to like to get it done the way I need to get it done.
Yeah.
So but yeah, man, I mean, yeah, being an American and growing up in America, and just having the I mean, what do you think, dude? I mean, you've been around. You were in New Orleans. You were in like, what was that like? I mean, that had to be just off the hook musically.
Yeah, it was. I actually moved there from Austin, Texas. So Austin had crazy different music from New Orleans, obvious. Well, not obvious to everybody.
Mm,
So back in the time, well, that was the late 90s, early 2000s, late 90s, that I was in Austin. It was very much ruled by, especially the lesbian folk scene was blowing up. So there were tons of new lesbian like solos and lesbian bands that were playing both on Sixth Street and down into I think it was Fourth or Fifth Street on the west side was where like the gay district kind of stuck to. It may have expanded well into like all of Sixth Street, but by now I don't know. But like the country, the folk, a little bit of like the alt rock was going on there, but it was really heavily dominated by the type of people who had an acoustic guitar, sitting against their wall in their living room. That was the most pervasive type of musician there. And I ended up meeting a guy from Indiana who, well, sorry, he went to school in Indiana, and his parents were from New Orleans. and he was actually a metalhead. Like he loved metal,
Mm.
speed metal especially, but also classic music. He was like trained on piano as a kid and stuff, and started teaching me how to think about instruments, not necessarily use them well, but like what they did, how your fingers are supposed to work, and taught me new chords and stuff like that. Introduced me to a lot of punk music, and a lot of I'd already heard a lot of metal music as a kid and stuff. I got into that as a young kid too. And then he was like, "Hey," one day he was like, "Hey, let's go to New Orleans," and I was like, okay, I got like, no cement on my feet. Let's go to New Orleans.
Whoa.
So we go to New Orleans and I get there and the music is entirely different than anything I'd ever heard, kind of the Zydeco stuff where you get this obviously black culture music, but it's infused with these melodies and these instrument usages that I had never seen in my life before. Like the first thing that kind of just like blew my mind was them using the washboard, and like they'd have mounted a little bell on it and they'd have like thimbles in their finger, and they do percussively, so that they could be mobile and walk around and stuff, do this weird percussive that's like drawing up and down the board and hitting this bell. And it was used kind of like a trap set was used in modern Western music from my days, um, but it was an entirely different sound. It was very tinny and high, and the bell was disarming at first. But then
Mm-hmm.
when you start to get the melding, it's like gumbo. Once you get the melding of all of the different flavors put in together, it all makes sense. It all fits in its place. They have practice doing it, but they've had a long time to culturally to figure out how all these tones make sense. And man, there's just nothing like it. It can sound uplifting, or it can tear your soul apart and make you feel sad and sorrowful. It can take you everywhere music can go with like literally no words. They can do it just with the music, which is the show's like a masterful ability as a musician when you can use just pure music to drive emotions around exactly. That can be shown, especially with the second line, I think is what it's called. During the funerals, they'll have if people watching this have never been to New Orleans, um, that when they have a funeral, especially of musicians, but not necessarily just musicians, like famous people in the city or politicians or whatever, when they die, they will walk through the streets in a little particular pattern through the streets to pick up people for the procession. So a procession is just like a parade walking the body or just the people to the funeral. Usually the body's like there at the funeral, ready to be lowered or whatever, at least these days. And so they would walk through the streets picking up people. So the music would be being played by a band, like with the parade. And the music is kind of the indicator for you to know that the procession has neared your location. It's time for you to go out your front door and join it. Some people will bring instruments themselves and join in the music, but the music is very somber. It's very slow. It's dirgy. It's like swaying. It's like na, 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 na,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes all the way to the cemetery, and then they'll bury them fairly quickly actually, and have like their little ceremony. They'll talk about stuff. That'll be fairly brief, and then everybody gets back onto the road, and then the instruments get picked back up, and it's super vibrant, it's super happy, it's super fast. Everybody's marching around, and they're celebrating the life of the person who died. So that's something that happens in New Orleans, and it happens with those same instruments where you've got like the big old drums that's like wrapped over your shoulders because they're very heavy, and there's a guy with cymbals usually, and a bunch of like horns, and the washboard guy is usually there. I mean, it's usually like one of the finer bands, that they know each other, and then people will just kind of fall in line who also play music, and they'll pick people up, and the sound will become larger and larger. That represents a lot of the types of music that I ran across in New Orleans, even going to clubs and stuff. Those same people who do that type of traditional New Orleans music would be in other bands, and those other bands might be a little bit modern. They might have some jazz and some like modern rock kind of sensibilities to them, but they'd always have a little tiny bit of that kind of Zydeco flair into it, especially horns. So yeah, New Orleans was like different than San Diego, was different than Texas, is different than Oklahoma City, and I assume the East Coast. I've never been to the East
Big
Coast.
time,
So.
big time. Yeah, I mean, so I mean, Frank Zappa's from Baltimore. Um, there are a lot of Baltimore's a rock town. It's pretty. I mean, growing up here in the '70s, I mean, we were. I mean, who did I listen to? It was like Steely Dan, because you're coming out of that. You're coming out of like the really solid Motown, era, and you're listening to Zeppelin. You were listening to. I was listening to Joni Mitchell. I was listening to Steely Dan, Zeppelin, Deep Purple, of course, Al Green. The Temptations
Oh
were still
God.
heavy duty. Yeah, yeah, still heavy duty. Um, like the pop scene, it was just classic American like soul slash rock slash soul. I mean folk music, you know. And then you had your fusion bands like John McLaughlin, the Mahavishnu Orchestra. You had Return to Forever. I think it was Stanley Clark, the piano player. What's his name? Oh my God, I can't remember. But anyways, Lenny White was the drummer. You had, dude, you had Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention with, of course, Frank Zappa. That band was just Ruth and John Underwood, George Duke. I mean, these people, these were like, and we'd go see shows, man. We'd go see these like ridiculously amazing shows. Um, whether it was the Beach Boys in Chicago or Aerosmith or the Stones. I mean, we'd see these people live,
Yeah.
and it was crazy. It was like, but it was the best time, because you saw these people live, and it was just like, if you saw it on the radio, I mean, if you heard it on the radio, you could go to the Capitol Center and see them. I saw, man, how many bands did I see? I saw Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I saw Linda Ronstadt. I saw the Eagles. I saw Jackson Browne. I saw all these like amazing musicians, and it just, it inspired me to play music. But it was traditionally American, like out of the classical form of coming from the classical form of, from blues to soul music, or from a little bit of how can I say, like Chantilly Lane, from that
Hmm.
to 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 Zeppelin or whatever was like kicking butt on the radio at the time. Mott
Yeah.
the Hoople, David Bowie, all this stuff, and you're just like, and then all of a sudden, dude, it all just changed. It just like, it all just, it all just, I mean, rap music came through, and that just laid down. Okay, I'll say this, and then you tell me what you think.
Okay. Okay.
It's 1992. I moved to LA. Freaking grunge music it's just started, but it's at an all time high,
Hmm.
and NWA had just kind of like filtered out. I think Cube had just dropped an album, but uh, Dre and Snoop dropped an album in '92,
Yeah.
and it was just like, boom. You remember that?
Yeah, I do. I remember thinking that samples were being used in a compositional way, like by the rap artists, their producers, I should say. Some of
Mm,
them, Dre was doing his own stuff, right? Because he was
Yeah.
both a producer and a rapper, but they were using it in a compositional way that really hadn't been used before. I mean, there was like the Sugar Hill Gang and stuff when they were doing like Rapper's Delight, and people were sampling that and doing stuff. It was kind of just the novelty of repeating these things to give you like a new verse or whatever. It was structural, but it wasn't compositional in a complex way like classical music is.
Hmm.
And I think the early '90s rap and other like Beastie Boys. Well, that's still rap. That's just white boy rap, right? Um, they started using samples and electronic machines to help facilitate the composition in a way more extremely like creative and professional way. And it's not necessarily like because they were signed by a large company that helped them do that. A lot of these a lot of these things were figured out in garages by these kids.
Big
Um,
time.
it was just the technology really maturing that allowed them to open up these techniques, I guess. So that's what I remember most is that this electronic and like meets acoustic style of music, which rap is. It's electronic. It's like samples. It's like all this digital space, even analog. Records are kind of analog,
Hmm. Hmm.
but the analog form in the form of your voice. So it's like this like old world meets new world thing, and that had kind of already happened a little bit in the '80s, but it was very simple and almost dirty, almost just like kind of an FU to the system. And this was a maturity that became the system. This was it
Hmm.
taking over everything and saying, "We're here to stay. We're going to change everything." And it did. It changed everything. And electronic music was from that point forward not going anywhere, for better or for worse.
I mean, it changed everything socially too. Like
Yeah.
it like at that point in time, I think like Diggable Planets, Tribe Called Quest, um, who else? I mean, there's a ton of like really amazing um, hip. I don't even want to call it rap. I would call it more hip hop than I would
Yeah.
call it rap. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was
But
the hip
these,
hop kind of meets R&B stuff, like Andre 3000.
yeah, exactly.
What was that band called? Like, all right, all right, all right.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Sorry, Miss
dude.
Jackson.
Yeah,
Uh,
this is for real.
yeah,
Ooh. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh God. So let me look it up. Hold on.
yeah. I can't remember. Because they just dropped off of the face of the planet after making their money.
Who is
Uh,
Sorry Miss Jackson by? Hold on. Who is Sorry Miss Jackson by? Outcast.
Outcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right as Outcast was at its peak was when I still to this day, I think that was for me my peak of like that merger between kind of the old school style of like rap and R&B and hip hop and the new oncoming thing. And I feel like I think it did hit a peak for me because it's kind of gone downhill. There's a few exceptions, but a lot of the bands that are at the top of their game and getting the most, sales and merch sales and praise these days don't do it for me like that peak of
No,
music for me back then. I
no,
mean, I guess
no.
that's me being old and me going like it was better back in the
No,
day.
no, man. I mean, think about it, man. Like, so if you're thinking Outcast, you're like, hey, hey, and then you've got so fresh and so clean, clean. All of that stuff, dude. That stuff was so good. I
Yeah,
mean, but now you're like, dude, I don't even like. It's really got to hit me for me to like it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? We know what we're forgetting, dude. We're forgetting disco.
Well, I thought we were gonna intentionally forget this. I think just we all agreed just
Oh,
to never acknowledge that it
dude, I don't
existed.
know about that, man. Dude, there
All
was
right,
some
there was a
great.
few. Yeah, there was some good stuff, but
I think there was, dude.
there was also some awful stuff tied to it where what was the deal like what was the deal with the stadium where they burned all the records and shit and there was like
Oh yeah,
the,
man.
the
Yeah,
white
yeah, yeah,
supremacists came out in full
yeah, yeah,
force and they were
yeah, dude. Yeah, this is like 81, 82, something like that. Yeah, they burned.
yeah,
They like put it in the middle of a stadium and burned all these disco records, man. I
yeah,
remember. I remember seeing that. But I mean, you know what? It was. I'm sorry, man. I mean, like, like, um, My favorite band, one of my favorite bands of all time, anyways, was Chic. I Want Your Love.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Uh, good, yeah, good. These are the good times.
Hmm.
And the band, I forgot the name of the band. They were amazing, dude. And the band that put out uh, Disco Inferno.
Yeah,
It's a great song. It that song, and then Rock the Boat, the first
yeah.
real disco song. You know what I mean? I mean,
I know a lot of people hate them, but I really liked the Bee Gees, and more importantly, okay, so a lot of people,
they
a
were
lot of
amazing.
well, a lot of people love the Bee Gees, but more people than more people than love the Bee Gees, I think, hated the Bee Gees doing the Sergeant Pepper album covers, for the Beatles. They did that
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
There
yeah.
was the movie where the Bee Gees did all of the Beatles songs, and it was almost universally hated. But I grew up on it. It was something we had a copy of at my house when I was young, and I would just watch that shit over and over and over. So
Yeah.
I grew to love both the Beatles and the Bee Gees because of that stupid movie. It's probably also where I got the idea that drugs were cool because there were lots of scenes where they were like, it was insinuating that they were like doing tons of coke and drinking these massive fishbowl, things of getting fucked up, and then all these beautiful songs, these psychedelic songs came along that were definitely influenced by like the drug dance culture of the disco age, plus the experimentation from the Beatles. Yeah, I loved the Bee Gees and the Beatles for that reason.
What about like one of the most amazing soundtracks of all time that the Bee Gees did for with John Travolta, Saturday Night Live, or not Saturday
Yeah,
Night Fever,
yeah, yeah. So
Saturday
I
Night
would
Fever.
have called it the same
Dude,
thing. Yeah, it's been so long.
yeah, right. Dude, Saturday Night
Yep,
Fever. Are you kidding me?
yep,
Dude,
yep.
every song.
Which would be what the most famous one is "Staying Alive." Is that
Yeah,
the top one, I think? And then John Travolta basically got his entire career based on.
that's where it started, man. He
Yeah,
killed that movie. He
yeah,
killed that movie. You know, Italian kid going to the disco, open shirt, big collar, bell bottoms, and that was, dude. That was like, it was an extremely provocative era. Like tons of drugs, dude.
yeah.
Tons of drugs. Tons of like if these people now, like these millennial mothers and fathers who are like that hate CRT and trans people and gay people and LGBTQ, bro, if they were alive then, if they were like doing what, it was so off the, man, I'm telling you, I was there. It was crazy. We would go to discotheques. We would like jump in the car on like a Thursday night and drive up to New York City and just go to like Gatsby's or some other like huge discotheque to just like brains out, dude. Or we'd go to like they have this one club in Baltimore called Hammerjacks, bro. I'm telling you, it was just a different. It was so like, American music, especially the rock and roll part of it, like the Aerosmith, like Rolling Stones, Heart, those girls, just amazingly, everything about that era of like rock and roll. And then you had just all this genuinely like beautifully made music, and you
Hmm.
knew where it came from, and you knew why it was there. And now I think, you've got that pop rock, you've got that pop country, which, hey man, you know if that's what you want to do, that's cool. But
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not trying to be mean. Because I mean, dude, now how old is Taylor Swift now? What is she, like 38 now, 35, 36? I mean, she's not 19, 25 anymore. I mean, she's been, It's just wild, dude. American music is the best.
I
Everyone
I
wants
actually
to.
like with Taylor Swift. I actually listened to her last album. I mean, I've
It's
like
good, man.
begrudgingly heard a lot of her music over the years, but I actually sat down and listened to that last album, and I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much that after like 4 or 5 songs of hearing it for the first time, I said I'm gonna go ahead and go to social media. I'm gonna I drew myself a bath as like a joke. I took a little video of it and stuff, and I put on candles and stuff, and I did a review of all of the songs on the
Oh
fly.
Lord, you did not, dude.
I did. It was really
Oh
funny. I loved
Rock,
it.
that's so funny.
Yeah.
With a glass of wine and a little
Yeah.
little tray in front of you.
Yeah.
Tonight's. Oh man, that's so funny. It's crazy that you say that because think about this, dude. Think about if you want to talk about American music that kind of okay. So you have the Beatles and you had Motown, but you also have the Beach Boys.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, man. The Beach Boys were the bomb.
Yeah, they
The
were.
best
That was again one of my first like loves when I ventured off into myself, like, away from home and stuff. I had heard Beach Boys from my stepdad in the car and stuff, and it kind of got like old because I heard the same songs over and over on like the oldies channel. And then once I got into that catalog, I was overwhelmed with just like how creative. Was it Brian Wilson, or who was he,
Yeah,
the
Brian
primary
Wilson. He
writer?
was he was the
Um,
he was the guy, man.
yeah, and like how crazy he went too was like a delight to learn. I mean, I feel bad that anybody goes through like mental health issues and stuff, but like hearing all of these experimentations that he went through, you can just hear kind of the madness in his mind and how he's trying to organize things and draw people in. That was definitely also an influence on me in working with you. I remember I bought like a shit ton of toys, musical toys from like Tijuana and stuff. When I'd go down into Mexico, I'd come back with something, a little shaker, a little accordion, toy accordion. They'd all be functional, or we'd make our own little shakers or whatever. We'd rub a stick across some wooden toy or something. That was all because of Brian Wilson and how he had all of those crazy landscapes of sounds. Was that Phil Spector? Did Phil Spector produce stuff with him to do kind of the Wall of
The
Sound?
Wall of
Phil Spector.
Sound. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
not
know
sure
if
if that
Phil
was.
Spector. If Phil.
Yeah, I don't know if Phil Spector did everything or even did anything with Brian Wilson, but that wall of sound and the experimentation with lots of like toys and just anything, any object, if it sounds right, can fit into your music. That mentality definitely came from the Beach Boys. They were incredible.
Yeah, they were like Pet Sounds is like their. It's just that whole album. Is
Yep.
just like the entire album, the entire record, every song is just like what. I think I was like, so that came out in like 65, 66, 67, somewhere in there. And I remember my buddy, was it Jeff's mom and dad had that album. And I would go over to his house, dude. We would just sit there, like I'd spend the night or whatever, like when you're 9, 10, 11 years old, you'd have overnights, blah, blah, blah. And we would just we'd listen to all those, all of that. It was as crazy as America is, and probably always will be. There are so many good things that have come out of this country, man. And people, if people could just somehow relate to the fact that there are so many amazing things this country has made. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
especially musically, man. Like, I mean, it's just like,
Well, there's
dude.
always going to be the crazy fuckers that take a good thing and turn it bad though. Because what was the name of? I'm just blanking. Charles Manson was like a huge fan of the Beach Boys,
Of
right?
the
And they
Beach
ran
Boys.
into each other. They ran into each other at a party, and he like tried to become a part of their band and shit. And his followers, like they all knew each other through that crazy California scene. So like You can take the most genuine, like historic, beautiful part of American culture and relate it, attach it somehow. Like Kevin Bacon, 2 degrees or 7 degrees. It doesn't take 7 degrees, like 2 degrees of separation. And
Yeah.
there's a crazy fucker who wants to murder everybody, no matter
Well, dude, what's
what.
that movie Altamont, where the Rolling Stones they hired the Hell's Angels to be security,
Yeah,
at their concert. Like, what are you doing, man? And
yeah.
the Hell's Angels wind up stabbing this guy on the
What
side of the stage,
what did you
like
think was gonna
dead.
happen?
Like, what? These are some of the most sociopathic people on the planet. Okay, I love you guys. I love the Hell's Angels.
Right.
Just saying that. But I mean, it's just like, are you kidding me? It's just
Yeah.
like, no, you're not going to do that. It's just, yeah, no, yeah, no, I look at like, um, or dude, like when they had like those Who concerts and all those people got trampled,
Yeah.
like yeah, man. I mean, I don't know, but that's they're British, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, it does. But because it was at the Capitol Center, that's where that happened. Believe it or not, I
Yeah.
think it was at the Capitol Center in Largo, Maryland. But no, I mean, there's so much. Yeah, you're right. There's so much crazy stuff that's come. Like Jim
I mean,
Morrison,
like,
like
oh God, yeah. I was going to
yeah,
reference the in the early 1900s with like the Ella Fitzgerald and the Billie Holiday era. There was like the integration stuff going on where they would often refuse to play unless they got to play in an integrated scene, and sometimes those crowds would fight. There would be outbreaks of violence because they realized, that they were integrated, and some of them didn't like it, especially down in the more southern, southern areas and stuff. And
yeah.
this
It's
this
crazy
is
that you say that because no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say that's some of the most beautiful music in the world. Like Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday both had origin stories where some of the first times they had sang had been during like competitions where people were dancing. That was kind of the popular thing back then. It was kind of like American Idol or America's Got Talent, but just like that was entertainment
Hmm.
for them back then. And both of them have origin story things where they stood up and like there had been dancers before them, and the guy was like, "You should just sing. Do you know how to sing?" And their singing like made people just like stop dead in their tracks. And these would be Riley groups who want to like bitch and moan about like bad acts or whatever, and then otherwise they're just kind of like a very very riotous in a positive way, and like would like almost overpower the singer in how much they're enjoying it. But both of these singers were noted for how quiet the audience became because the timbre of their voice and their singing ability was just so otherworldly that everybody just had to shut up and listen. And yet you've got this quality of like talent. You still have assholes who are willing to just like hate each other in the crowd, even though the best musicians in the world of all time are sitting in front of them, providing like the voice of God essentially. Like the voices of God are coming upon, like washing over them, and they still can't ignore that inside voice that says like, yeah, but I hate this person beside me. So yeah, there's just always a little fraction of humanity who is gonna
Yeah.
gonna ruin it.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because that whole era, the 1940s, well, I would say from ragtime, like that kind of music to
Yeah.
that whole like genre of music from like basically the beginning, like I don't know when it started, like because I mean I don't know, but when the Negro spiritual, or the songs of sorrow, um, on plantations became Well, those songs of sorrow became Negro spirituals. Those Negro spirituals became the blues and branched out into other types of secular music,
Yeah.
ragtime and jazz. You know what I mean? And jazz is just an art form where that's just, I mean, when you listen, I mean, my favorite album in the world is by Miles Davis. It's Blue. It's just that this the whole it's just mind blowing to me how like where did you come up with that, dude? Like how
Yeah.
did you even think of like where does one's soul have to go in order to write that kind of music? And then I'm not going to say they're in the same or the well they're Weather Report. um I think it was who was it? Wayne Shorter, Jaco Pastoria,
Hmm.
who else? The keyboard player. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. And they used one of two drummers. But anyways, um, there's just so much music. I mean, there's Otis Redding, there's James Brown, there's Aretha Franklin, there's you know the two brothers, the two white guys um, who oh my love, my daughter. No, that's not them. Yeah, that's them. I humble for your touch
Hmm.
alone. Yeah, dude. I mean, there's the Righteous Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, if that can't bring you together, if that can't bring people together, I mean, like these guys loved the music enough to go down that rabbit hole. You know what I mean? And then you've got bands like Bad Brains that are just so all just a bunch of dreadies who play power punk,
Yeah.
the first real power punk band on the planet, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like you're just like, okay, dude, we're all Americans.
Yeah.
We all like the same thing. I mean, basically, I mean that's what if music doesn't help you understand that we're in this like whole thing like where you know I have cousins that like I love country music, dude. I'm a country music fan. Can't say that I'm not. I love I love country music. I mean, maybe like one of my favorite country music singers of all time. His name is Ricky Skaggs. Unbelievable guitar player, unbelievable mandolin player, and can sing, bro. Whew, my God. But it's just like, I mean, you're right, dude. It's just like 3 degrees of separation. It's just like all we have to do is just like it's like a big, what do you call it when you mix music down? All we have to do is like a huge mix down, but that's not going to happen. I'm not going to kid myself.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, what are your feelings on like I know, okay, for me, I know it's not like a steadfast rule because I don't want to give like young people the impression that like you have to suffer or you have to use drugs or you have to ruin your liver or you have to like party to excess to to like reach those depths to do things like Miles Davis did or like so Billie Holiday was like the bad girl and Ella Fitzgerald was like the good girl. Ella Fitzgerald was like this really like super nice, like well behaved, girl by all accounts of the people who knew her. Um, and then Billie Holiday came from this like fucked up childhood where she was sexually assaulted in the beginning by like a neighbor, and I think her cousin as well before that. And then like resorted to drugs and alcohol, and later in life, like, did was it Strange Fruit, where like the United States tried to ruin her life because she was like using heroin and stuff, and like they legit like sent investigators to try to collect evidence, and succeeded in that, and like took her to court and stuff, and like meanwhile they found out who was the other singer. There was a female. Oh no, she wasn't a singer. Meanwhile, at the same time, Judy Garland came out, was using a shit ton of drugs and was an addict. And during the same like anti addiction movement, they just swept that under the rug. In fact, the guy who did it was like for the United States. There was like this prosecutor guy who was starting all of the investigations against Billie Holiday. Um, he later was found, or no, he later found out his favorite president. What was that? What it was? His favorite president, or no, McCarthy. He found out that he loved McCarthy, and he found out that McCarthy suffered from like an opioid addiction, and he helped McCarthy like on the down low get access to medical help and legal prescriptions for his addiction. And so it obviously turned out to be kind of a racism thing, a built-in, like what became the drug war. I guess my point was, um, do you feel like the drinking and the drugs and the partying like helped a lot of these people get to these depths of the music? Do you feel like it was necessary for a lot of people? Do you feel like it was trappings that kind of like is intentionally pushed on a lot of like cultures? What are your thoughts on the connection between like drugs and alcohol and music and partying extremes and stuff like that?
I think that if you look at American music and you look where, like, look, dude, if African Americans don't show up in America, we're still dancing to minuets. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
We're still listening to Beethoven. We're still listening to whatever. The struggle of the African American, like the stone cold hardcore struggle, basically, not basically, it brought forth all this unbelievably tense and relatable music that we all enjoy because of um, the passion behind it. You know what I mean? A lot of suffering. Um, it's one song. I forgot what it's who it's. Writing good. Sometimes you have to suffer to write good music. I mean, like a lot of the songs. Like I wrote a song called "Perfect," and it's like, dude, that was song's all about my ex-wife, and I mean, that was some crazy shit. I mean, it was the whole thing, man. And dude, like I did not, I literally didn't, I didn't do very well at that point in my life. I was really in a bad place, Um, yeah, and yeah, dude, I was drinking, I was smoking a lot of pot, a lot of pot. I mean, but I mean, it was like, see, see, once again I've fallen around the way. Is it her that I see? No, no, no. It's not to be perfect for you and for me. It was just like, because I love this woman, bro. I mean, like, I was in love with her. Like, it was like the love of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I suffered. Yeah. But it just, it just depends on where your soul is and what your spirit's about. And me, I mean, I write crazy, not really. I mean, on my own, like now it's like, let's see, how's it go? Put a lid on my heart, put a lid on my heart, tucked it all away. that's how I'm writing now.
Yeah.
You know, it's more because I don't have that. It's still I'm a hopeless romantic, I guess. You know, it's just I guess once you've been through it, you've been through it. You know, and it kind of sticks with you. But yeah, I'm hoping that most people, if they can like, if you, yeah, man, if you don't have to do the drugs, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, my girl, what's her name?
Janis
Janis
Joplin,
Janis Joplin, freaking homeboy from Nirvana,
Kurt Cobain,
Kurt Cobain. Yeah, I mean all these dudes
and
like the whole.
people forget about because it's not really well known. Andrew Wood kind of
Yeah, yeah,
kicked off the grunge. He was Mother Love Bone. Yeah, was that band?
yeah. You know, I mean, you know, you got to. That's, I mean, some of the best art comes from pain, dude.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, dude. But some of the best art comes from like some of the deepest sorrow and pain. I mean, it's just, you know, because dude. I mean, I guess people want you to feel it. You know, it's just like,
Gonna say, I guess maybe it's a matter of utility because when somebody's going through pain or whatever, loss, I guess that's a form of pain, it helps to excise it through
mm,
your music. If you've got that gift, if you've got that tool, or at least the desire to find a way to excise it, and then you discover you can play music, or you force yourself to be able to play music in order to get this demon out or to process this problem, these emotions. Uh, the I guess the brilliance of music is that it is like almost like a virus or like an encyclopedia where you can hand it over to somebody else, and then they too can excise that their own demons, even though it's not the same situation. Humans have pretty similar experiences, or at least we can imagine, similar experiences. We have pretty similar brains when it comes down to it. We're like 99.8% the same, right? And so it's pretty useful as a tool compared to other tools. Like, you hand somebody, I don't know, like a washcloth. It's a super useful tool, but it's not going to do something deep and meaningful and emotional for you for cleansing like that internal stuff. But you hand somebody a song that you just heard or you just wrote, and holy shit, you can get years and years and years worth of therapy out of that song.
well, you've
That's
heard
powerful.
people say things like, you know, that this album got me through, like this song got me through like 2 to 3 years of my list. This music helps me get through A B C D E F G. I do. I mean, you know, if it wasn't literally, I mean, I'd probably be worth a lot more money if I wasn't a musician, but I don't know that. You know, like
Right.
I'm a musician, dude. I mean, that's what I do. I write songs. Uh, I play guitar. I play piano. I play bass. But more piano and more guitar and piano. But it's like it's something that like um, I believe it's the anywhere actually. You know, the drumming that came from Africa. The dude listening to any of the symphonic music from Beethoven, dude, that shit is off the hook. I
Hmm.
mean, it's ridiculously good. You know,
Yeah.
like have you like boo hooing in a
Yeah.
corner. You know, or listening to the Blue Album by Joni Mitchell. You know,
Hmm.
or listening to yeah, Aretha Franklin, listening to the entire Motown catalog, dude.
Yeah,
Is
that's for sure.
yeah, yeah. It's just you could literally sit like when my dad passed away. I know I sat down for at least a good 4 or 5 months and listened to nothing but Motown because that's how I grew up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like baby, baby, Where did our love go? You know, all that stuff. The Supremes,
Hmm.
freaking. You see. Uh, let's see if I can do it. Let's see. I bet you wondered how I knew about these plans to make me blue. Yeah. I bet you wondered how I knew about these plans to make me blue. Some other guy that you knew before. To this girl, you know I love you more. Took me by surprise, I must say. When I found out yesterday, do you know, dude? You know, I mean, first time I heard that song, I was just like, whoa, because dude, it's. I was just like, dude, it's because it's so man, Marvin.
I think I was a little under emotionally developed when I was a kid and first heard a lot of the Motown stuff. I mean, later now it impacts me, of course, deeply. But I think the first time my emotions like blossomed that way with music, when I guess I was ready for it and it came to me, was Jeff Buckley's music. Jeff
Oh
Buckley's
my
music
god, dude.
tore me apart. Holy shit.
Whew, dude,
That's some
dude,
deep music. I mean, so is
bro.
Motown. So but that guy felt the stuff that all the classics felt.
Oh man, dude, Jeff Buckley. Jesus Christ. He's got this one song where it goes, kiss me, please kiss me out of
Desire, baby, no
desire,
consolations.
baby, not consolation. Bro, that whole song is just like, I was just like, you got, dude, he must have been, this dude, he must, he loved this chick.
Yeah,
I mean, like you know what I mean? Dude. And then, you know, Jeff, you got to go jump into Mississippi and never be found again.
son of a bitch.
Dude, you know, another dude feeling a lot of pain, bro.
Yeah.
Jumped in the Mississippi, bro.
What is it with musicians doing
I
stupid
don't know,
shit?
man. I'm not jumping into anything. Although I'll tell you what, dude. I've almost drank myself to death. Yeah, bro. There's some of those whistle stop nights were just insane,
Yeah, yeah. I
dude. I'm
mean,
telling you.
that's artists feel deeply. It really is. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a direct correlation between like the type of arts you go into and the type of emotional person you are. And every time I've met a musician, they're not boring. They're not shallow. They
No, no. Oh my God, no. Oh Lord, no, no. Jesus, dude. Oof. It's just, it's crazy. Matthew, remember Matthew?
not sure.
He was a poet. He had the glasses, the beard, the like tight curly hair, jet black hair.
Oh
I don't
man,
know
I
if you
just don't
remember Matthew.
remember.
Dude, that guy was
Yeah.
so talented. He's so talented, and he just, dude, love you, Matthew. He's, I don't know if he's still going out with that one chick. Anyways, dude. There's so many. Yeah, there was the whistle stop was like, it was like an emporium. I don't know if that's the right. Yeah, like an emporium where it was like this gathering place, like this gravity just pulled all these artists into that place, and it was just
Yeah.
like the center of the universe
Yeah.
for at one point for a good 4 years, dude.
Yeah.
Like everyone was there, everyone knew what was going on, and then one day, I don't know, maybe it's still going on. I mean, I don't know. Uh, I know it's still, yeah, but it can't be. There's no way it was like it was, dude. It was so off the hook back then. Maybe it is. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe the new
But
generation has found it. It's very
yeah, no, I
possible.
don't think so. I don't know, man. Generation Z, what? No, no. Oh, so hold on. Are you a millennial?
No,
You're
I'm
Generation X.
Yeah, I'm the between
Yeah,
generation.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're X. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Jones. I'm like right after the Boomers, right before X.
Okay.
Because I'm like I was a teenager when I was like 17, 18. It was like 77, 78. So I couldn't. I'm not a boomer. I
Right.
was born in '59. People are like, oh, that's. I'm like, not really. Like if you look up Generation Jones, like there's a generation called Generation Jones. Anyways, it's weird. Yeah, dude. I mean, to really get off into American music, I mean, it's something that could just like take up your entire life. You know, it's just because there's so much of it. There's so much that grew from just the origins of this country
Mm-hmm.
and how it was, how it was created, and it's just see where it takes us, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be remiss not to mention before we like cut everything off and say goodnight that the first American musicians were Native Americans,
Yep.
and back in the late 1800s, I think about 1880, um, there was the Ghost Dance and there was the Sun. I think it was called the Sun Dance, that were made illegal to dance, like or to sing and dance. um, by the nation, by white people, and only in like the late 1970s were Native Americans given the legal right to perform these dances and sing these songs and stuff again. So,
I'm gonna
um,
send you a this. Okay, so there's this indigenous person. He's this guy. He goes into these like big halls or these big like state houses that have like these amazing like uh, the sound quality is amazing. Like, and he sings in the Indian tongue, like the voice of the tribal. Like you can hear the spirits in his voice, bro.
nice,
I'm gonna send it
nice.
to you. It's just
Okay,
insane. It's insane. It's insane. You'll
that's
totally dig
great.
it. Totally dig it.
Yeah, I'm excited by that. That's
All
awesome.
right.
I wish I had more to give you. I used to have a bunch of CDs and stuff, but CDs get scratched up, and man, just wish I had them. Well,
No, it's
that
just
that
it's all good.
that was a good one. I really enjoyed discussing music. I think we should do a future music thing for our listeners at some point because you and I both love music. We've both been musicians in our past, and we have a lot more to say about it. But this was a good primer for like what we listen to and what's a good starting place for anybody who's young and listening. Look up any of the names that we mentioned here. Just like write a few down that stuck out to you and look up their catalogs, and enjoy because everything we mentioned on here is amazing, has a lot of value. If you think you've heard some of it and you think you didn't like it, you might have just heard what was the pop music of theirs, the stuff that the labels pushed on everybody, and everybody, you might be sick of it for that reason. It might not be their best stuff. Go back into the dregs of their, just randomly click on something in their catalog and see how it hits you. And if you don't like it, then move on to the next name. I promise you, out of everything we listed, there's going to be something in there you're going to fall in love with as hard as I did Jeff Buckley, or, he did any of the Motown original artists. So,
Joni Mitchell, Grateful Dead, dude. The Elvis Costello, X. I could just Little
Weird Al,
Feet,
Weird Al Yankovic.
Weird Al Yankovic. Look that up. Seriously, Weird Al Yankovic. It'll blow your mind. That was good. That was good. That was good. That was good. Holy smokes, man. All right, brother.
Yeah, man, it was another good one. We look forward to you guys seeing you guys or hearing from you guys. If you want to write us on Facebook or in comments, thanks for making it this far to the end. We love you guys. We will see you on the next American Micro podcast.
Peace.